Hi guys, it's Cam. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a video that I have been wanting to do for a while. It's one that I have watched probably every single one on YouTube, and I thought that I could join the club as a cancer survivor now and film my whole cancer story from start to end. I get so many questions regarding my diagnosis, what it means, what my future looks like, what my symptoms were, so many questions. So I thought that I would make a video where I sit down and go through everything, just explain my journey and my process, because in the month leading up to my diagnosis, I watched all of these on the internet. I was scared. There were so many unknowns. I didn't know what was going on. I honestly just had so many questions. So here I am making the video. I've actually been taking notes for months now and have everything written down every month, every chemo, and I'm gonna go through it all, starting with my symptoms, why I initially went to the doctor. So let's get into it. Quick disclaimer, cancer is different for every single human being. Even people that have the same exact cancer, you have different side effects, you might have different treatments, different timing, everything's different. So please just take this with a grain of salt. Whether you know someone that's gone through it, you're going through it. My story probably sounds very different than you or the person that you know. I'm not trying to compare it to anyone. I'm just trying to tell my story for how it is. Let's get into it. I'm wearing a cute head wrap today. What do we think? Kind of different, kind of fun. Okay, let's do it. The story starts on July 4th. I move into my apartment, you know, national holiday. I remember I was looking cute that day, moving into my new big girl apartment in Seattle with my friends for the following school year. So I move in. My primary care doctor was up in Seattle because the last time I had a permanent doctor was my pediatrician, but that expired when I was 18. I call up my girl up there and I'm like, hey, I think I'm dealing with some anemia because for quite a few months I had been very, very fatigued. That was probably my biggest symptom. I was sleeping a lot and never felt like I had enough sleep. Just feeling exhausted. I had a little bit of shortness of breath. My first time realizing that, we were on a hike. I am a big hiker. I should have been able to do it, but we weren't even able to make it to the waterfall at the end. And I was scared I had COVID because you hear COVID symptoms. The first one is shortness of breath. So I was like, shoot, I need to go get a COVID test. I don't want to get my family sick. So yeah, my symptoms, biggest one was fatigue, shortness of breath. So I went, met with my doctor. It was like, hey, might be anemic. My pediatrician told me that I was anemic when I was in high school, so maybe it's just gotten worse since then. Maybe I should take some iron supplements. She's like, okay, sweet, come get blood work, because this was a virtual appointment because of course everything's in a pandemic. So I go get my blood work done, don't think much of it. I think she's just gonna come back and tell me that my iron was low. So my blood work comes back and my white blood cells are at 24, and your white blood cells should be between 3 and 10. Like it might be 3 and 10.8, something like that. They were at 24. My doctor's like, red flag. I don't really understand what that means. She's like, okay, well your iron levels are super low, but I'm worried about your other counts. It wasn't just the white blood cells, everything was off. So if you get your blood work done, there's like, I'm gonna show a picture of an example. There is a range if you get it done, and there's like green spots. So all the green spots are like normal. I don't think one thing on my blood work was in the normal range. So we were like, boop, boop, something's wrong. And by this point, I was having really bad night sweats, and I had just moved into a new apartment. So I was thinking, oh, like it was the summertime. Maybe it's just really hot in there. Maybe it's my new sheets, my mattress. I thought it was that. I didn't realize that night sweats were a really big cancer symptom. So my mom's freaking out. I'm not, because I'm just like, I'm getting sweaty at night. Maybe I need to buy a floor fan. I didn't know. My night sweats were very, very bad. I was also having like morning nausea, and I thought that that was just allergies, like drainage in the morning. I just realized I haven't had that in months and how great it is to not wake up nauseous. So yeah, my doctor's like, I need you to go see a hematologist, which is a blood doctor, ASAP Rocky. I scheduled one up in Seattle, but I wasn't able to go in for like a week. My mom was like, no, this is not okay. You need to come home. Also, I had raging pneumonia. So within the span of my first week in my apartment, thought I had anemia, went and saw my doctor, got raging pneumonia, had a crazy high fever. So my sister ended up having to come up to Seattle and take me home because I was not well enough at all to drive. I come home, think that maybe I have bad anemia, COVID, and pneumonia all at once. That's what I thought. So I come home, thank God we have some family friends that recommended a hematologist oncologist for us to meet with. You know, when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, you want to go see someone that is good at what they do, because I'd say most doctors, all the ones I've experienced, have been amazing, but you just never know. You don't want to meet with someone that doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't know how to read a report. I come home, I go to urgent care due to my pneumonia. I have bilateral pneumonia in both lungs. The doctor's like, oh fuck, like that's not good. So she gives me meds for that. I even got, I'm pretty sure she did a steroid shot in my butt because she was scared that I was like gonna need to be hospitalized. I got COVID tested a million times too and never had it. The shortness of breath was just confusing for us, but realize it's just cancer. Sorry, the jokes make it better. All of this is happening within the first couple weeks of July. I don't want to get too scattered here. I want to stay on track, so I'm going to try my best. So all of my symptoms included fatigue, like I said before, shortness of breath. My white blood cell count was super high, like 3 times the amount. I had morning nausea. I had anemia and an iron deficiency very bad. I had 8 iron infusions in the first couple months starting in July because my iron was super low. I got super tired whenever I had alcohol. Like I would have a glass of wine and be exhausted. I had a lot of weight loss. I lost about like 7 pounds, which I was at a pretty average weight. To go down from there was a little bit scary. And then the night sweats, I started having fevers. That was more in August, having a fever every single day, like a low grade fever, and then major loss of appetite. So let's go back to my timeline. On the 20th, I had my first visit with my hematologist oncologist. She was amazing and she did a ton of blood work. At that appointment, I was by myself due to COVID. The cancer word did come up, but me being 21 years old at the time, I was like, it's probably not that, because again, you always hear cancer is like the worst case scenario. Don't Google it because it's probably not that. So honestly, at that first appointment, I really just like didn't think that that was it. With my type of cancer, one of the biggest symptoms is swollen lymph nodes because it's cancer in your lymph nodes. But I didn't have any swelling, none in my neck, none in my collarbone, none in my armpit. So none of the normal places where you'd have swelling or a big tumor or something like that. So that's why I was really kind of in denial. And then the 23rd, I had a CT scan, which CT scan's like a donut you go into, and it takes like, I think my mom timed it, it was like 7 minutes in and out. Very fast. I love CT scans. After that scan on the 23rd, my doctor, I went in to meet with her and she's like, you have stage 4 of some type of cancer. They know the stages because they look at how much has spread throughout the body. Hearing that you have stage 4 something is terrifying because it's like, what type of cancer do I have? A lot of stage 4 cancers are terminal. Hearing stage 4 is terrifying, but that's not the case. That's a really miscommon thing known about cancer, is that stage 4 is always terminal, but that's just not true. That's a total myth. So the 24th, I got a call, so this was the following day, and she's like, hey, you have lymphoma. I answered the phone and heard that first. I pretty much froze, and from then till I'd say the next 6 months, I was numb. Hearing that word triggered me to just like become a hermit and just absorb everything. I did cry that night, but more so because I knew I was gonna lose my hair. That was the first thing that I cried about, which is kind of funny because it's like the most surface level thing of cancer, but you know, 21 years old, my identity was tied to me having bangs. I was very sad about that, and I remember I just like took a shower and like sat down in the shower and cried. That's when you know it's bad, when you sit down in the shower. Got that call, so I knew it was stage 4 lymphoma at that time, but I didn't know if it was Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's. I went and met with her on the 27th. She had me go meet with a pulmonary doctor because there was something that showed up in my lungs, so they were a little bit concerned about that it was an infection. He didn't really know. And then the 31st, I had my first iron infusion. Like I said before, I was very anemic. Ended up, I think, having 8 of those just to boost my iron back up in my body. Then we go into August. August was the month of unknowns. There were so many things that we were trying to figure out. I knew I had stage 4 lymphoma, but didn't really know what lymphoma was. probably didn't even know it was a blood cancer at the time. I was very confused. So the 3rd, I go in and I have a bone marrow biopsy, which was probably the worst procedure out of all of them. No, the lung one was the worst, sorry. Bone marrow was not fun though. They go in to your big hip bone in the back. It's very fast, but very uncomfortable. I was only sedated, so I was very awake and aware and could feel things. I wasn't really numbed that much, so that was not very fun. But my bone marrow came back fine, which was really good. August 4th, I had my first PET scan. Learned that I hate PET scans because you're laying in a machine for about 20 minutes and it's very claustrophobic. There was a lot that happened this month. COVID test, the 12th, I had my lymph node biopsy. So that was when they went in, that's the scar here, to take out one of my lymph nodes so they could see if it was Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's. Long story short, comes back inconclusive. It was just a normal lymph node with no cancer in it. Then I get referred to a surgeon. Her name was Dr. Katova. She was a badass. Love her. She wanted to go in because they knew that there was some sort of cancer in my lungs. It wasn't lung cancer, but they found some stuff there, so they were gonna go in. That's my 2 scars on the side. They went in and took some tissue. She, I think, immediately found and could feel that there was cancer in my lungs. Again, not lung cancer, but just there was some cancer residue. Residue, that's a weird word for it, but in my lungs. So yeah, that was called a left vat biopsy, and I had to stay overnight. Worst night of my life. I had to take hydrocodone like every 6 hours, and it was just miserable. On the 28th, I met with a lymphoma specialist in Portland, and he was awesome. He just told me a lot about lymphoma and what it is. He actually thought it was stage 3, but he just misread the report and didn't see the stuff in my lungs. And I actually can show you my scans. I have pictures of them now, so I'll show you what my scans looked like, and then I'll show you them 6 months later because I have the side-by-side report, which is crazy. So after my left vat biopsy in my lungs, they found that it was stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I finally got my diagnosis, which I waited about a month and a half for that. So almost 2 months, which is crazy. So that was a really tough waiting period. I first heard you're stage 4, then I heard lymphoma, then I heard Hodgkin's. So it was just the weirdest order to learn it in, and it was really hard to process all that and tell a couple of my friends because it was just really, really confusing at the time. So then we're going into treatment stuff. So this is kind of the next phase. First phase was the diagnosis. Next phase is figuring out treatment. So the typical treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma is ABVD, gosh, I can't speak. So that's adriamycin, bleomycin, vinblastine, and dicarbazine. Bleomycin, the second drug, is found to be really tough on your lungs and I think have like some lung damage after. We wanted to avoid bleomycin at all costs, and there's a newish drug called brentuximab that you could pretty much replace the bleomycin with. So I would do adriamycin, vinblastine, dicarbazine, and add brentuximab on the end. So I'm doing 75% of the normal regimen and adding 1 clinical trial drug. But I was not part of a clinical trial, I was just taking that drug. Finally, figure out my treatment. I had a little while to decide on that, and that was a really hard decision because there were 3 options. I could have done the normal, I could have done 1 clinical trial, or another clinical trial. So hearing that you have choices and your life is on the line, it was honestly really scary and really hard to make that decision. All the while, I was trying to decide on whether I would freeze my eggs or not because it's known that chemotherapy could possibly make you infertile or more infertile than you were before. So I had to decide on that. But at this point in August, I was having fevers every day. I was so sick. I did not want to put my body through all of the hormones and all of the ultrasounds and then the surgery eventually at the end. And it's not even guaranteed that they'll get eggs at the end. Also, I'm 21 years old, not thinking about having kids right now. And that was probably one of the most emotional things for me because I know that I 100% want to have kids in the future, like 110% want to have kids. And having to decide at 21 whether you're going to put your body through that was really, really hard. But it ended up just being that I needed to put my cancer first and start treatment because if I would have done done IVF, it would have pushed out my chemo a couple of weeks, which at that point, I didn't have much time left. I didn't want to put my body through that anymore. I wanted to start getting better, even though it's hard to see chemotherapy is getting better because you're literally poisoning your body. I was like, I need to just start now. So in September on the 2nd, I had my port surgery. A lot of people decide between a port and a PICC line. A PICC is in your arm. I was very thankful that I got to choose. Actually, I don't even know if it was a choice. They were like, you're getting a port, it's the easiest. So I still have my port in today. It's just a little incision about here and then my port, and it connects up to my major vein there. So I had my port surgery. That was not a very hard recovery because this part of your body doesn't move much. In your lungs, you're breathing every day. So that one was really hard to recover from. So that one was fairly easy. I mean, none of them are easy, but I'd say easier of the few. And then on September 10th, my dad's birthday, I had my first chemo. It was terrifying, honestly, because I didn't really know my nurses yet. So I was in this place with all of these strangers. I wasn't able to have my family with me, which is a very, very normal thing before COVID, is to at least have one person sitting with you. You guys have probably seen it in vlogs, but there's chairs all the way around and then a nurse's station in the middle, and you're just sitting there with a bunch of people. Everyone's at least 6 feet apart. Some days I was in there by myself. It was very, very, very lonely. COVID made chemotherapy much harder, especially in the beginning when I didn't really know anyone in there. Now the nurses are my best friends, but took 6 months of building those relationships. So at this point in September, I'm still having iron infusions pretty much every week. The 30th was when I officially shaved my head. I filmed that, so that's up on here too. At that point, so much of my hair was coming out. Anytime I touched it, it was just a whole handful would come out. It was just so much to deal with that I was like, it needs to go now. So that was after my second chemo. I decided to do that. And that was really hard, but honestly afterwards felt kind of freeing. Kind of mixed emotions on that one. So October I had my last iron infusion, and then chemo 3 and 4. Forgot to mention, I did chemotherapy every 2 weeks. So at the beginning it was pretty nice. I would have a recovery week in between. So it'd be like a week of me laying in bed and then a week of me feeling pretty okay before I went into my next one. October 29th, I had my second PET scan. This one was a little bit scary. My doctor called me the next day. She was like, we see improvement, but it's not moving as fast as we like. So she was a little bit worried about me having to add on radiation, or if I was needing to change my chemotherapy. It was kind of up to me. That was really scary. Every time I had a PET scan, my doctor would look at it and then she would send it to the Lymphoma Specialist and have a whole tumor board look at it. They thought that I was moving in a good direction and a good pace, and they were like, she should stick with it. So that was really nice to have the second opinion with it, because my doctor's amazing and I love her, but I know that anything in life, sometimes it's good to have a second opinion. November was pretty same. At this point in my life, it was just week by week. I don't know, at this point, it was like I saw the goal at the end and I was pushing through as fast as I can, as best that I can, as staying as strong as I can. So I had chemo 5 and 6, and I'd say 5 and 6 were when things started turning a little bit. I was definitely getting more and more tired and nauseous, and at that point on the 19th I was halfway done. The chemos were cumulative, so every single one got harder and harder. I had chemo 7 and 8. At this point my appetite was really low. I was scared that I was having a little bit of neuropathy in my toes, but honestly it's December and it was cold and I have bad circulation. I think that's all it was. Neuropathy is when you have like tingling and you can't feel like your fingertips and your toes. This is very common with chemotherapy. But yeah, I was just exhausted at this point. My body was so tired. On the 24th, Christmas Eve, I had my third PET scan. That one was really good because it was showing that I was improving even more. It wasn't completely gone, but it was a lot better, which was the greatest thing to hear. Then on New Year's Eve, to ring in the new year, I had chemo number 9. So New Year's Day, I was so tired. I woke up just feeling so sick. But at this point, I'd say with chemo 9, it was taking about 3 to 4 days of me pretty much in bed, not being being able to eat before I was able to bounce back. It was really, really tough at this point because it was just this repetitive thing, walking into chemotherapy, pretty much walking in and just being like, okay, it's time for poison in your body. So that was a really weird thing to process mentally. Very mixed feelings about chemotherapy. I hate it and I love it. January, I had chemo 10 and chemo 11. Then February 12th, I had my last one. I got to ring the bell. I'd say 10, 11, 12 were completely the hardest chemotherapies for sure, 110%. I had this new thing. It was kind of scary. For 24 hours, it felt like every single inch of my body was bruised, especially my jaw. Like even the lightest touch hurt, the back of my neck. I think that it was just the accumulation of chemotherapy at this point, and it was weird that it was these spots, but I think that that's probably where the chemo was targeting, so that's why it hurt so bad. I can't even explain. Every single inch of my body hurt and felt like it had been run over by a truck. I would kind of like make jokes about it, like everything hurts, but like I actually meant every single thing hurt in me. But it only lasted for like 24 hours, thank God, and then I was able to kind of phase out of it. But for 10, 11, 12, that was really, really hard. Also at this point, mentally, not super great. Don't want to go into it a ton because I'm still working on it. A lot of tears, a lot of just hating life, being angry. Usually a pretty optimistic person, but at this point, full pessimistic person. Thank God it would only last for a few days, at worst a week. Just being so angry and sad that long of time while your body is just so exhausted was just the worst combination. For those of you watching that haven't gone through it, it's honestly hard to explain. It's kind of this thing where I understand that you will never completely understand. I can explain it to the best of my ability, but it's really, really hard to explain to someone. It's just harder than anything I've ever experienced. Sometimes it's hard to put into words how I feel. Any of you who have gone through it probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Any of you who are watching that haven't gone through it, if you know of anyone or have any friends or loved ones, I think this is just something to try to empathize with. I love the metaphor that Brene Brown talks about, the difference between sympathy and empathy. So sympathy is if someone's down in a really deep, dark hole. Sympathy is looking down and being like, hey, like just talking to them from up above and kind of checking in on them, but you can't really because you're not down there with them. And empathy is going down into that hole with them and trying to sit with them. 10, 11, 12 were hard to say the least. 12, I got to ring that bell. That was the best thing ever. I was so happy. It was actually a snow day, so like no one was there and all my doctors and nurses were out, so it was like me and 2 nurses just cheering, which was fine because I love them. Then March comes around, the 15th, I had my last PET scan. She ended up calling that same day. This is actually a funny story. So my doctor follows me on Instagram and I had posted my typical photo of me in the chemo chair making a joke that I was like radioactive, and she saw that at like 5 p.m. when she got off work, and she was like, okay, I'll go check one more time if the radiologist submitted the PET scan report. So she goes and looks and it was there and it was 100% clear, and she gave me the call. I wish I would have recorded it, but I was honestly so caught off guard because usually she would call 1 to 2 days after. The fact that it went so fast makes me think that it was just an easy read. She said that I was 100% cured. She doesn't think that it'll come back. It's hard because every doctor has different terminology. Some use remission, some don't. Some say you're cured, some don't. So please, this is just what my doctor told me. It's so different for everyone. But my doctor said that she wouldn't even say that it was in remission. She would say that I'm cured, that there was no sign of uptake in my body. She was just so relieved and so happy, and so was I. I honestly was pretty stunned for a while, and it didn't hit me till a few days later. I got one more blood work done, which is something that I'll have to keep up with for the next few years, probably for the rest of my life, but came back very good. Like I said before, everything was out of range. Finally, I'd say 9 out of 10 things were in range, which is amazing. On the 18th of March, I met with my surgeon. She's amazing. She did my lymph node biopsy surgery and my pore surgery, and now she will be taking my pore out. So it's just nice to have a familiar person. So she's going to be taking my port out on April 28th. I will definitely vlog that. One last hospital vlog, gotta get it in. So look out for that in a few weeks. I just can't wait to get this device out of me, and I feel like that'll be the last thing that I can kind of just take a deep breath and be like, I'm done with that chapter of my life and can put it behind me. It's gonna be something that I carry with me, something that has completely changed me and shaped my view on life, just made me such a grateful person and a stronger person, and I could write a whole book about it. I kind of get to go back to being a young adult. The fact that I am healthy is just the best thing ever. I will never take my health for granted again. Waking up feeling good, will never take that for granted again. That's my cancer timeline. I really hope that it made sense. That was very long. The last thing I wanted to talk about before I left was the things that helped me through this journey. It is very different for everyone, but I feel like I tried to write down as many things, as many vitamins and supplements and things like that as possible that would help me just to prevent any extra pain. One of the biggest things was I took glutamine powder every day. It's an amino acid, and I would just do a scoop and drink it every day, and this was found to help mouth sores and neuropathy, which were two very, very common things from the chemotherapy regimen I was on. I didn't have any of those things, thank God. Sometimes I would get really, really bad dry mouth, but never mouth sores. I swear I started taking it my first day of chemotherapy, 1 scoop a day, and I didn't have either of those things, so I don't know if that was just luck or if it was actually the glutamine helping, but it didn't hurt. Next thing I did was eyelash serum and castor oil. I did this on my eyelashes and eyebrows every day until I completely lost them. And I had no eyelash or eyebrow loss until around Chemo 6 or Chemo 7. That I think helped a lot. Now I'm trying to grow them back. I did take CBD with a mix of THC, and I think that helped a lot with my nausea and appetite throughout. Please check if it's legal in your state. Thankfully, in Oregon, it is legal. The CBD really, really helped my aches, and the THC helped kick up my hunger when I really needed to eat something. This is kind of a random one, but the Biotin dry mouth spray, I would do that probably the first 2 days after chemotherapy because I had really bad dry mouth. I took a lot of fiber. Milk of magnesia was my saint, and probiotics just to help that flow. One of my prescriptions was prochloroprene, and that helped a lot with nausea and sleep. Oh, this is a big one. So I had Nulosta Injections, which boost your white blood cells while you're going through chemotherapy, because chemotherapy pretty much kills your whole immune system and wipes it out to 0 sometimes. So I would get these things called Nulosta shots, which would boost up my white blood cells and keep them in a normal range. With that came very bad bone aches because your white blood cells are produced in your big bones, and when your body's producing them more than normal, you get really achy, like really achy, and my hips would hurt so bad. So something that I found helped with that was Tylenol arthritis. I took dexamethasone in the morning for nausea. That was also prescribed. And the last thing I took was B12 and fruit and veggie supplements in the morning just to give me a little bit of energy. I don't know how much those helped, but some days I felt like they'd give me a little bit of energy, so that's good. Those are all the things that I took during. So yeah, I feel like I've been sitting here talking for 40 minutes. I think I have been. I hope that this video was informative for you. I hope I didn't leave anything out. If you have any questions or stories you want to tell me, please leave them down below. Love to hear them, love to read them, love to respond to your questions. Please be nice. For some reason, people like to comment. Actually, I don't even want to say it because I don't want that to trigger people to comment it more. Please just be nice. Cancer is a really hard thing to talk about, but coming on here, I'm really trying to normalize talking about it, even though it is something that's very hard. A lot of people go through it or experience it in some form in their life, and I would love to normalize just being open and talking about it and relating to one another. So that's why I'm on here telling this story. If I can help one person by opening up about my cancer, that's that would mean the world to me, and that makes it worth it. That's why I'm here. I'm not trying to compare myself, just trying to explain my story. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, learned a little bit more about blood cancer and Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm just so blessed to be a cancer survivor, sitting here talking to you, doing what I love, just make videos. Take care of yourself, folks. Don't take your health for granted. Go do daily checkups, go get blood work if you feel like something's wrong. Please do that. That's the best thing to do. That's the first step. Go get your blood work done, make sure everything's okay. Take care of yourself. I love you. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.
She told me not to lie. You said, honey,